Chapter 131. Predation 6. Predation 6. Even after erasing all traces of the elves that were there, I couldn't control my trembling. His voice had been brief, yet it lingered in my mind. Even though his magic had reached this place through that dying elf, only long enough to speak a few words, the pressure I felt was no joke. The difference between us was too great to start congratulating myself on my growth. That wasn't the only problem, either. I can't remember. The demon who lost its name. Those who abandoned or betrayed me and acquired the status of an elf. Then, even if I hadn't seen his true appearance, I should be able to call his name. But I couldn't. I could feel a refusal to recall his name in my mind. It wasn't an issue with my memories. His name was hidden from the world. Damn it. This is ridiculous. It seemed that I used to wield nonsensical powers in the past, but not anymore. It had been difficult enough to defeat Marcocious, but this L was way beyond me. But perhaps I could guarantee myself victory against the demons under his command, if not him yet. No, maybe the other demons aren't like Marcocious. Perhaps he wasn't protecting all of them. I had to hope so. Anyway, it's clear he's aware of me. What should I do? Will he move himself? When I meet him, I'll run away. That's all. If he were really afraid of me, he wouldn't leave me be, not when I'd fallen this far. It was a given to remove all risk factors. But why? It shouldn't be beyond him to appear right before me as soon as he sensed me. He said my name and recognized my existence, so why? Perhaps why not? Was I so weak he decided to ignore me? But he did say 5 years was earlier than he thought. If I had been weaker than he imagined, he wouldn't have said that. Damn. I've been preparing, but that didn't go as I figured it might. What the hell am I missing? Captain! I heard a voice calling to me. The place where I stopped the elves wasn't that far from the fort, so the group was just catching up to me. Cain ran without thinking to hide his massive 11-meter-tall body. It didn't really matter now that we'd been caught by the enemy leader. Why do you look like that? Did you kill all the elves here? Li Chanyu and my sister were paying attention to different parts of the scene. I just shrugged. I spoke to the last boss for a while. You make such serious things sound like a joke. Are you okay? Li Chanyu's sharp eyes examined me. My younger sister, on the other hand, immediately ran up to look at me. You mean the elves' chief? Are you injured? We just talked for a bit. The real problem starts now. I let out a sigh as I looked around at the strangely quiet surroundings. I think they're not moving. As soon as you start, you're caught by the enemy. It doesn't make sense to face them. Shut up. I brought the group together. Whatever the case, what I needed to do would only happen faster. It would be advantageous to me if he didn't move right away. We'll start right away. Stay alert, we'll be out for a while. Okay. Huh. Woo. I'll stand in the front. It's okay, it'll work. I activated the record. A terrifying amount of mana, now a fairly manageable amount, was absorbed into the record to create a black shade in front of our eyes. Cain jumped forward as if he had been waiting, followed by the entirety of Rebellion and my sister into the shadow. Do I really have to go? I might die. If you ask one more time, you'll want to die. I tossed Katsuragi into the shadow like a parent putting their child in the car. How stupid I was. How stupid indeed. How L had already begun to move before he noticed me. He, who is more arrogant than anyone else on this earth, who doesn't want anyone to be above him, has no way to admit his fear or weakness. As expected, things didn't go so well. The humans who had taken over the power of Chaos Soul from the elves were mainly those who had been leading human society before the Great Fusion. Not only were they strong, society as a whole leaned upon them. Even in Korea, many hated One Flag but were reluctant to try and fight them. Many despaired and wondered who would protect Korea now that they were gone. Therefore, I decided to exercise my strength without considering the future of those in Korea. You can't do that. From now on, it's the difference between facing danger now or doing it later while they pretend to be an ally. If we wait, their strength will increase. My sister was unable to respond to my clear response. Meanwhile, I spread my hand towards Cain and began using my magic. It was reinforcement magic that I could apply to him. Cain, go. Leave it to me. As with Lee Minha, the person we were after stood at the forefront of his country's protection. At that moment, the stealth magic hiding Cain was released, and his huge body appeared from nowhere. Ah! What is that? With his extraordinarily large form and my magic backing him up, Cain was akin to a god of destruction. It was like watching a sci-fi movie, fierce scenes playing out in front of my eyes again and again. Brother, bystanders will get caught up in this. There are few people there who have nothing to do with Chaos Soul, and those few people will be removed from the front lines. I couldn't kill civilians who were only working as grunts for the company. All I wanted to do was remove everything related to the Chaos Souls from Earth. Fast, stealthy, and strong. We'll move those unrelated to the Chaos Souls in a single step. Our allies will take care of it. Your allies? Who's that? The spider that you said was cute, Salas. It can use ubiquitous to form 100 of itself and move them at the same time. Liar! Whether or not she thought I lied, Salas just reported that the work was done. Cain, there are no civilians left. Start. No need to tell me. Cain, who had been playing around like he was the giant monster in a disaster movie so far, activated all of the mana in his body and jumped in earnest. The whole building collapsed with his fist, with the humans trying to escape becoming little more than smears of gore. I clicked my tongue as I looked at the overwhelming display. It's worse than in Korea. There were more than 1,000 twisted souls in this area. Even after the Great Fusion, this was still the site of a population powerhouse with more than 500 million people. Save me! We've done nothing wrong. People shouted loud in despair at the sight in front of them, unaware we were just killing Chaos Souls. No doubt, the elites would be sneaking out somewhere behind such a prominent building. We left Cain to run wild and caught those trying to run away, using the many monsters under Lee Chanyu's command. Ash! A hellhound? In such a place? Ha! The siege network made up of monsters gradually narrowed, bringing the guild members into one place. They used the power of the soul to counterattack, but my echo expanded to absorb all of the soul power. Soon, that power was converted into the power of destruction, smashing through our attackers. Do you know who you're messing with? I know. I made Morena and Lee Chanyu fight the stronger ones and focused on the weak ones myself. My role in this battle was mainly to just sit back and watch so our party could grow. There was no one like Lee Minha around, and I wondered if news from Korea had spread. Although some elites remained, the head of the guild was hiding. Still, as long as they had the energy of a Chaos Soul and existed on this planet, they couldn't escape from me. Morena and Lee Chanyu were mopping up the helpless enemies now, and Katsuragi was solely focused on preventing outsiders from intruding. His massive stores of mana and his dislike of killing made him surprisingly good at that role. Ah! My sister could not speak before the sights she saw, but she didn't try to stop us. She just stared at me with tears in her eyes. I haven't been convinced. I'm different from you. I can't distinguish things like twisted souls. Soon, you'll encounter things that you can confirm with your own eyes. It won't be pleasant, though. And actually, it came soon. On that day, we were raiding an abandoned factory owned by the same guild we had been raiding just prior. It was a space prepared to take care of absorbing human souls. It was stained with dirt, dust, and blood. Solid iron bars with scratches on them filled the space, making it look more like a prison than a factory. My sister was looking down on that reality. To be honest, it was new to me as well. I had never considered how disgusting the actions a human could take just to become a Chaos Soul. What is this? Was this in Korea? I mumbled over the mass of machinery installed in the factory. Countless mechanical devices lined up side by side. They were torture devices activated by mana. I could feel familiar mana from them, that of undead magic. It must be a device to bind the human soul to the earth. They want it to remain on earth? Only, how do you think ghosts occur? I reached out, using space destruction to crush the machinery. I spread it out in all directions, leaving no traces of this horrible factory. Resentment, anger, and despair. It artificially creates those things, destroys the body, and then absorbs the soul before it can fully form into an undead. This is the process of converting a human into a chaos soul. They must have stopped their operations when we raided their HQ. There were still traces of hastily disposed materials. It wasn't a scene I wanted to look at for long, and I forced the party away from there. Captain. Next one. I silently picked up the record and set the next target. My sister now fought alongside us. 1 week before the Devil's Night, we had erased all traces of Chaos Souls from 3 countries. The evolution of Lee Chanyu and Morena was almost upon them. Chapter 132. Predation 7. Predation 7. You guys are no different. A man with a Chaos Soul let out a shout, dyeing the beautiful shores in Florida with blood and a dark soul. All those who had been guarding him were already dead and devoured by the predation I shared with the party prior. You're a monster that eats souls just like me. His HQ had been in New York, but he himself was hiding here in Florida with only a small number of elite guards. At first, I wondered if he really had a Chaos Soul as he was more powerful than Lee Minha, but he didn't make that big of a commotion. Ko-ho-ho-ho. There it is. Gray smoke filled the air and flowed towards us ominously. Is that the power of a higher entity, Captain? No way. It's just the power of a body holding connected souls. It's similar to what we've been dealing with so far. I think I want to vomit. Tighten the shields so there are no victims, Katsuragi. The elves' strategy against humans was terribly effective. Humans would kill anyone in their way if it meant they could become stronger and stand at the center of this world. It hadn't been long since they started their plan with the Chaos Souls, passing it on to humans, yet it had already spread so far due to that. Fate. I want to punish him. It's odd to hear that from you of all people, Morena. Why are you attacking your own? The soul is so precious. Yeah. Everything was going according to Elicatra and El's plan. I had retreated too much before. You guys will devour them too. I'll become the ruler of America. No, the world. Lee Chanyu, Morena. I leave it to you. I can't win. Win anyway. Even if you say it so lightly, we can't do what we can't do, damn it. While speaking, Lee Chanyu transformed into a werewolf and ran towards the man. Morena was determined to stand firmly from the start, following after him with a dagger. I could see they were focused on the situation. Captain, are you? Perhaps. There was almost no time left until the Devil's Night. I was thinking about pulling them off the front line if I could see their potential to evolve here. Lee Chanyu's claws shone with the dark energy of predation, tearing the shoulder of this deteriorated monster as it tried to overwhelm him with a wave of dark souls. The Lee Chanyu not long ago would have suffered a critical hit and fell away at that point, but now he was able to handle the power of predation. I could feel it flowing through me through our connection. KHHHHH. Morena followed up right behind him. She jumped in between Lee Chanyu and the souls that had gathered into the shape of a sword. If we win, I get a kiss. No! I was worried that I might distract her, but it turned out to be all right. He sent an attack my way, but I spread my hands forward and absorbed it. That was the biggest reason I wasn't too worried about them. He was focused on me behind him, so he couldn't put his all in attacking them. As I thought that, he began to show a movement I wasn't expecting. Goo! Ha! It formed into a huge soul mass that soared into the air. So far up, it was hard to see. It began to absorb the mana of nature from the air to increase its size. I almost felt sorry for it. It's difficult to control. Ha! Can you really eat me? You'll be my prey too. The man shouted outrageously while holding back both Morena and Lee Chanyu. Even though he was burning through his mana, he still had plenty to spare. I hated to think about how many people had died to grant him that power. My sister flinched momentarily before stepping forward, but I raised my hand to stop her. Brother, I know you want to help, but Morena and Lee Chan, you have to earn the experience that'll come out of killing that guy. KH. The contaminated soul sphere was attracting mana in from every direction and turning it into destructive power. Finally, it began to fall down as fast as it had risen. That was towards where we were fighting now. Katsuragi. I can't stop it. Focus on using your defensive magic. I'll deal with the rest. I began using Predation and Lunatic Trickster simultaneously, imbuing Katsuragi's defensive magic with both of them. My target was Lee Chanyu and Morena. I could see the soul sphere gradually growing in size as it approached. Meanwhile, the two were constantly attacking the enemy without getting distracted. They believed in me to take care of it. I'll die anyway, so why should I stop? Our goal is something bigger than an idiot like you. Lee Chanyu's claws tore into his face, demolishing the human body that was little more than an outer shell. The face of a monstrous pupa-like monster revealed itself, groaning at him. Idiot? That's it. Was that the signal? The soul sphere engulfed the entire space, falling to the ground. Katsuragi's shield met it, resisting it for just a moment, and then burst with a loud bang. That triggered Lunatic Trickster, consuming all the power in the sphere and transferring it to Lee Chanyu and Morena. Coup! Oh! Unbelievable! Yells erupted from the three. Brother, what are you doing? Now's your chance. Do it now. I didn't have time to listen to my sister. I poured an immense power into them at once. Now they would have to endure it until they were promoted. It would be tough. There's a limit to how far you can push them. They won't die. What nonsense! Ah! Lee Chanyu moved first. I wondered if his body would burst instantly, but instead, he pushed his right arm forward as if shooting a cannon. The tip of those huge, sharp claws was the focal point of his mana, facing right at the monster's head. Damn you, die! Recognizing Lee Chanyu's movements, the man tried to crush him with his momentum. Both attacks were hoping for the other's death, completely neglecting defense. Each attack hit. The man's head burst apart, and Lee Chanyu's head was crushed in half. The roar of the impact made me think the sky might collapse. Ah! Kuuhua! Both of them regenerated almost instantly and were destroyed again just as fast. They were trying to overwhelm the other's regeneration. Ha! At the moment, Morena's dagger found its way into the monster's heart. Her fast and secretive movements made me wonder if she had awakened Reaper herself. But it wasn't enough to kill the monster. It wasn't enough to stab it in the heart. You had no choice but to extract the source of their energy with predation. But Morena soon exceeded my expectations. That is, now! A bright white glow erupted from her dagger, denying and destroying all the elements that made up the monster's body. It was the power I had from memories of myself. The power that was the enemy of Jinma, possessed by the elves. Mana that could weaken the mana of Jinma. It was the absolute defense she had learned, now expressed aggressively. The change in mana was only possible because Morena managed to survive and defend her soul from other beings in the rookie's battlefield and had repeatedly battled with contaminated souls. Morena, who was regarded as disposable by El and the Elacatra, called a hybrid by Rain and the others, didn't care about it at all. She manifested the purest and most powerful ability among our ranks. Awe! My worries for Morena evaporated. After this battle was over, a full-fledged change would occur. Lee Chanyu, don't you lose. Of course. Lee Chanyu's attack followed right behind. He kept wailing on the enemy, biting and tearing at it. The end came soon after. In the first place, as soon as he failed to damage us with that sphere, his defeat was clear. Now the end had shortened due to Morena's unexpected awakening. Ha! After the enemy was slain, the mana that formed him was absorbed into Lee Chanyu. Whether he could break through his limit or not. He roared fiercely as he accepted the mana. Morena was changing as well. All of the mana that composed her flesh was altering immensely, ripping her clothes apart. I quickly threw clothes over her to block her appearance before Katsuragi could respond. Why? Why? No, I kicked Katsuragi, who was screaming, and waited for their evolution to end. Brother, can I become a higher entity? Only, well, I don't know if it's possible for a human. Because it's difficult, I wonder if these people were driven to try a terrible method called Chaos Soul. I don't want to do that. She jumped and shouted in disgust. I gave her a smile and stroked her head as she began to pout. If I become stronger, I'll achieve it with my own strength. I'll help however I can. There are things that my brother can't help with. Then give up. That's unfair. I didn't tell her that I wasn't sure humans could even reach that level. But, for my sister, who was linked to me by that chain of dominion, then maybe. I didn't open my mouth because I didn't want to give her any false hope. We walked over to greet the two, who had finished evolving into higher-level entities. Chapter 133. The Birth of the Legion 1. The Birth of the Legion 1. Perhaps it was because of the time they took in becoming a higher entity that the change Lee Chanyu and Mirena met was dramatic. Oh yes, it's finally happening. I assumed Lee Chanyu's arm had swollen up during the fight because of the mana gathering inside him, but that was only half right. He didn't have the confidence to control mana by himself, so he used the monsters under his command. They aided him in controlling it, so his arm was in the process of using their powers. It's great. He was now testing how many powers from those monsters he could summon at once. He had officially entered the higher system and acquired a powerful ability as a result. I wasn't confident in controlling a large number of monsters myself, so there was no way I could help him. Captain, you pushed that mana too hard, but it worked out, I suppose. Don't worry. I was confident I'd live. Oh yeah. Lee Chanyu let out a laugh as he continued to adjust to his strength, focusing it into his arms, just his claws expanding it all over his body. I watched him repeatedly test it while adjusting the number of monsters he was controlling. If you could concentrate the power of all the monsters under your control at once, that would be great. Isn't that like the ability of a protagonist? After all this time, I was the main character. Why would you say that? Mister, that's stupid. Mirena spoke up to him on my behalf, thankfully. Lee Chanyu suddenly stretched his shoulders out, looking at Mirena. If I'm the main character, shouldn't an elf girl be sticking to my arm? Isn't it weird, Captain? Isn't it because you talk like that you can't be the main character? Don't tell me. I'm aware of it. Just survive the devil's night. You can always look for a pretty wolf girl. I don't need that. Lee Chanyu became rather gloomy. I let out a sigh and turned my attention to Mirena. It's really surprising. Why? Did I become prettier? Saying you became prettier implies you were pretty from the start. That's unfair. Of course, I was joking. Mirena was certainly pretty, and now that she had evolved, she had somehow become only more beautiful. Not that I would admit it. Her skin shone brightly under the influence of her soul, and her eyes looked like an aurora of colors. While she still had the similarly youthful features in her face, her body certainly embodied the ideal of all creatures. In strength, she wouldn't win against Marcotia's, but aesthetically she would win an undeniable victory. She was even closer to Elle's level now. But perhaps that was due to the nature of her abilities. It was an amazing defensive ability, but even when using to attack, it was probably one of the most powerful weapons on Earth right now. It was natural, considering how powerful the demon's claw was. Weapons that could attack the very soul were hard to beat. If you look closer, your thoughts will change. I gave up on pulling her off of me. If I acquired this ability on the rookie's battlefield, I would have been able to clear up all of the Chaos Souls alone. But that would mean that I wouldn't have met you. I hate that. Are all elves like this? You're saying strange things. I'm here because I met you. That was true, at least partially. It was mostly because of her personality that walked straight forwards without looking back. There was no point in considering what could have been. You had no choice but to go on as it was. The more you sharpen that ability, the stronger it will become. So make sure to practice. Thus, you'll be fighting in real battles. Oh, we're fighting more monsters? Yeah. Both of their abilities had limitations in magnitude, but the way they were expressed surprised me. Just like Predation, they were highly efficient abilities. Just like Elle and I, they could become an overwhelming force. As their master, it was easy to see that they had the mana of Jinma now, which objectively meant, you've become demons. Demons possessing unique abilities that could someday rival my own. Cain had his overwhelming combat power, and Katsuragi had vast stores of mana, but neither of them had awakened their unique abilities yet. Ah, Captain? I'm no longer a werewolf. You can't transform into a wolf? I can, but if I borrow the power of my subordinates, I can transform into a crocodile or an elephant too. It was like he was freed from the bonds of his power. They had expanded to allow him more versatility. On the other hand, Mirena's case was a bit strange. She was different from the elven race now, but she could still create a gate to the battlefield. Both demonic and elvish, considering Marcoche's, that's dangerous. It's okay. I like it because it feels like I'm more connected with you. I didn't ask about your feelings. Her ability allowed her to maintain a pure soul. Somehow, she was harmonizing these different powers inside of her. It was a power based on the elves, but it was completed by the power of Jinma. No doubt, Marcoche's would have been astonished to see it, as well as the head of the Elicatra. Quickly get used to that ability, we're running out of time. Okay. I made sure the others were alright after checking out the two who had evolved, but everyone was alright. I left them to get used to their power. Is it really okay to leave your sister on Earth? There were monsters bigger than Cain in my realm, but with his overwhelming magical power, none of them could compare. He was like a massive moving landmark. It's better to leave her on Earth for her own safety. This'll be a difficult fight. She would be trapped in the castle even if I did bring her. For us, it's a Spartan-style regiment that pushes us past our limits, but you're soft on her. Only, that was natural. She was my precious family. Of course, you'd want your family to be safe. No. In fact, I might have been relieved that I was hoping for her to be safe. My desire to protect my family, which was no more than a pretense of being a human, proved to me that I was once human. I almost wanted to laugh at myself for still trying to pretend. If the Elicatra appears near my sister, she'll be summoned to my side. Let's hope not, though. As if to expel my own doubts, I decided to reveal the precautions I had taken. Cain nodded and remained quiet. Fate. Rain quietly approached me on the innermost wall that protected the fortress. A and L were located in the same structure they had been during the previous Devil's Night. All preparations are over. The Devil's Night will begin soon. As if to prove his words, the moon hanging above us began to emit an ominous black light. While the monsters near us began to scream as the mana affected them, Elle closed her eyes tightly and spread her power in all directions to try and uplift them. Atu spread his power to create a shield over the fortress. In the meantime, Rain lightly grasped the swaying chain on his forearm and looked at me. Fate, you promised victory to us all. Was he acknowledging my strength? I didn't know, but it didn't feel bad. I raised the power of predation and spread it in all directions. Devour them all and become stronger. Those who survive will gain strength. I shouted out to encourage my troops. It was childish, but the response was fierce. Beyond them, the space surrounding my realm began to distort. I raised a silent hand as I took in the breathtaking sight. I waited for everyone to calm down before my hand descended like a guillotine. Go! It was the beginning of a battle that would bring about a huge change to both the underground and Earth. Chapter 134. The Birth of the Legion 2. The Birth of the Legion 2. This is the only saint underground. It's funny. Are there only such insignificant things? The walls installed outside of the main fortification weren't very solid from the get-go. They weren't built for defense, but rather to separate areas. As expected, the walls quickly collapsed, and the monsters that had been defending them lost their lives helplessly against the demon's momentum. But that was all according to plan. Ho-ho-ho-ho! Among the monsters incorporated into this area during the dungeon hunt, those placed at the forefront were the weak ones that couldn't exceed level 150. In the first collision, the casualties were already numbering in the thousands, and that number only grew as the enemy's offensive was pushing through the collapsed wall. You're finally here. Eat them all. Take the last name. The time of rebellion has come. That annoying voice from last time once again haunted me, robbing the reasoning of everyone on the battlefield. Weak! Coward! How long will you hide? The temporary walls were torn down everywhere, and even though they knew their fate, the monsters rushed toward the enemy in front of them. The demons bathed themselves in blood under the black moonlight, keeping up their mad charge towards the fortress at the center of the realm. There are too many enemies. They're stronger this time, too. I thought it would hold out a little more. It's a necessary process. I spoke firmly and exercised my strength over the whole area. Those who lost their lives were pulled into the ground so the enemy couldn't take their bodies or mana. It's the leader. This power is too weird. Devil's Night was a night for the most primitive and ignorant way of evolution to take place. As the enemy consumed the fallen and became stronger, your dead allies became more dangerous than your living enemies. In order to keep the troops intact, I had to recover them all and strengthen my allies. Fortunately, it was possible for me. Kaya ha 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 ha. Fuck. This battlefield is weird. What kind of guy is the leader? Surely. Therefore, the power of predation became the most reliable power here. Being able to control all of this and maximize our own efficiency was an incredible advantage on this battlefield. I forced my dying allies to be absorbed by my surviving ones and turned to Katsuragi. Katsuragi, you're up. Damn. Always asking for unreasonable work. All you have to do is pour out your magic. Only your magic. In the process of using Lunatic Trickster, it had changed quite a bit. At first, I had only been using it to set traps to capture the enemy, but it was possible to make it inhabit objects. In the process of developing it, I had become aware of another functionality it had. It allowed others to handle my abilities. It was a simple task to use Lunatic Trickster in providing mana to temporary artifacts created with my abilities. Katsuragi reached out with both of his hands to grab the black metal barrel floating in the air. His magic was absorbed into it at a frightening speed, creating a black sphere of lightning in the center of the muzzle. When all the power that could be contained in a single sphere went inside, it launched into the battlefield like a cannonball. As the number of spheres flying around the battlefield gradually increased, the number of demons approaching began to decrease. I was able to walk around the battlefield without doing anything. The temporary cannon made out of underground metal had the ability to create a black mine full of the power of predation and space destruction. If only we all had those weapons, no one could get close. Unfortunately, that wouldn't work. Responding to Cain's words, I looked at Katsuragi, shivering as he fed the barrel his mana. Feeling my gaze, he looked at me anxiously. You won't attack me, right? Don't be stupid. I was busy recovering the allied corpses spread throughout the battlefield. Katsuragi had vast magical capabilities, even compared to me, but he still lacked the guts to fight enemies at close range. So this cannon that could utilize those reserves of mana from a distance was a perfect fit for him. The black mines continuously shot out of the cannon to spread throughout the battlefield. They were designed to kill weak enemies rather than a few strong ones, so the enemy's numbers weren't decreasing significantly. However, the mana stolen from the enemy overflowed from them and caused them to split. It was a vicious ability that I created, one I really didn't want to deal with. They created a brief period of respite for a counterattack to begin. The monsters that had absorbed the dead to become stronger were starting to exhaust the enemy little by little. The demons were losing the momentum they acquired from overrunning the weaker monsters. Fuck it. All of the laws are breaking. No. Maybe everything is going back to normal. Do not give up. Are you afraid of those who stand still and wait for death? There came a voice to uplift all those still alive and force them to continue. Whenever the demons' hearts weakened, whenever they regained their reason, it came down upon them like a breaking wave. Resistance was meaningless. They were there to claim victory, not to preserve their own lives. It was clearly worse than it had been before. Quickly. The high-ranking demon hasn't even arrived yet. Elle was continuing to use her magic to protect those in the Allied territory. But no matter how great she was, she couldn't spread her power across the vast area. Allies and enemies danced together to troublesome times under the Devil's Night. No matter how many corpses I recovered to strengthen my allies, thousands of them were defeated as thousands of enemies came in. Everyone here was holding a festival that risked their lives for the completion of the night. Completion? I felt something stick in my throat at my words. I had no way to explore what it was, though. If my movement stopped for even 1 second, the difference between the sides would double. I'd rather not worry about all of my teammates, but now I was the leader of the Legion. Captain, is it our turn yet? Soon. I hope it ends like this. Katsuragi muttered useless sentiments as a huge shadow appeared over the crumbling walls to the northwest. A huge entity followed soon after, chasing after its shadow. It was a huge snake that seemed to rot through everything it touched. Couldn't call its name. It is the time for liberation. Katsuragi. Katsuragi shook his head, making an expression as if it was unfair. It wasn't his fault, however. Should I do it? Rain approached me from behind and asked me, but I shook my head. No, this is just what it's worth. Lee Chanyu and Cain's eyes lit up, and they took a pose to run forward, understanding what was about to happen. Mirena also readied herself with a dagger in hand. The number of black mines are already decreasing, so go straight ahead. Follow Lee Chanyu. Leave it to me. Lee Chanyu and Mirena sprinted across the battlefield with their appearances hidden. Cain deliberately started a bit after them, catching the attention of everyone on the battlefield. His height began to grow little by little. Familiar energy, familiar appearance. The king is back with his subordinates. The voice filled the battlefield, even though it wasn't very loud. He was showing off his superiority to the other demons by emphasizing his existence. It was a simple tactic, but the effect was quick and powerful. It's like the entire underground has opened up. Only, everything will change. He might change. Go ahead. Destroy all who stand above you. I will take control. I will reclaim my lost name and reign over these losers. Little ones, sacrifice your lives to open the way. All those who moved under the black moonlight did so against us as enemies. It was like the very world was trying to drive us out. Enmity flowed out from over the walls and curled up around me like a tentacle. I slowly breathed in and out. Strangely, I didn't hate it. Now I knew why. That guy's good. Lee Chanyu's voice resonated out. High-ranking monsters suddenly rose up from all sides to bite at the giant snake, followed by the black mines that filled the battlefield. The night continued to grow deeper. Only the cursed moonlight shone upon us all. The battle was just beginning. Chapter 135. The Birth of the Legion 3. The Birth of the Legion 3. I wanted to help my allies struggling with the snake, but the situation didn't allow it. As originally planned, the quality of corpses generated on the battlefield increased and were used to strengthen my allies. It too increased the quality of the enemies appearing. He's here. Look up. Your enemy is here. Kach? Elle clicked her tongue as she surveyed the battlefield from the wall. The voice continued to grow in strength as the night deepened. The realm hadn't been completely subjugated yet, so the power Elle could exert was still limited. Her protection gradually began to break away. Quo! Cry a bit more nicely, children. Under the voice's influence, the monsters lost their faltering sense of control and started to wild. The speed they're declining is fast. I muttered in frustration as I worked. I was turning the corpses of the fallen into energy, picking a good candidate, and then feeding them the energy to increase their ability. Death and evolution were occurring everywhere before me. I had yet to battle myself, but my head was already dizzy from exerting the power of predation. As I was beginning to feel overwhelmed, Salas, who was waiting on my shoulder, tilted his head and let out a cute cry. What? I'm still waiting. The appearance of that higher-level demon wouldn't be the end. I had yet to draw out one of the strongest powers. It begins. A who was still maintaining the shield around the fortress, spoke calmly. There were plenty of demons who wanted to infiltrate the castle instead of rushing into the front line, so his shield was essential. It snuffed the lives of those who tried to break in. I looked up and far out to where the front line was, where almost no allies could be found. The land there had gradually darkened. I could no longer exercise my power on that land, which was natural as the number of monsters that served as the basis for it decreased. After tonight, the territory will expand again. Then I can devour everything. I responded bluntly to A and waved my hands like I was a conductor. Even if it was reducing, the area in which the battle was occurring was still wide. I couldn't go out just yet. Time continued to pass. The members of rebellion continued to battle against the giant snake, but there had been no change in the situation. The abilities of Li Chanyu and Morena were clear to see, but unfortunately, their levels were still low. Even with his name sealed, they couldn't quickly destroy the snake that had years to gather power. However, as I started to worry over one of my members getting hurt before they could kill the snake, a voice sounded out. I've arrived. Curse the one who cleanses the past with the blood of his subordinates. It is time for you to pay for your sins. It was finally revealed. Fate. I will burn you. I recognized its cursed existence, and instinctively, my body was filled with the power of destruction. This was a person who could make that power stronger. I wondered if it was possible for high-ranking demons to resonate with each other, but that seemed to be the case. Salas. Mew. Salas disappeared from around me. Canis, you go too. Jiao. Canis, who was hiding in the shadow, cried out vigorously and sprinted into the air. He vanished in a blink with ubiquitous, just like Salas did. Burn everything. This whole world that is nothing but an illusion. Huh. This spider. Mew. Ash. I stopped paying attention after watching the two rush after the leopard that was setting fires everywhere. It had strength similar to Andras, but Salas and Canis were superior entities with plenty of combat experience. I was confident they could take care of it a lot faster than the others. The real problem starts now. Consuming the countless monsters to block incoming enemies and remove the high-ranking demons was the best course of action in the current situation. In fact, it was working, and only the demons who were fiercely determined or exceptionally well hidden were sneaking around the fortress. Since our main purpose under the Devil's Night was to protect the castle, I hoped it would work. But there was a problem with the number of elites. Rebellion's main force, the three of them, were fighting one demon, and Salas and Canis were in charge of the strongest one. Elena couldn't move, so in the end, all that was left was Rain. I feel lonely. Katsuragi. Focus and aim straight. Ah, of course. Moreover, the consumption of allied troops was proceeding faster than I expected. It would be nice if the rest of the people became stronger, but that would just be an illusion. While I wondered if it was wrong to thank that, a huge dragon appeared from the dark fog. Kahahaha. A festival. A festival is being held. After a long, long time. A grand festival. I immediately went on alert. Corpses began to pile up on all sides, centered on him. Shit. The dragon form wasn't just for show. His power was far beyond the giant snake and leopard as it exuded the power of necromancy. Even if the two attacked him at the same time, they wouldn't win. Rain arrived without hesitation. I'll go. No, if it's impossible to. In truth, I wasn't sure if he could win. However, I knew that I, the lord of this castle, wouldn't be able to protect anything if I was scared off by the invaders. Rain had a sorrowful look on his face as he spoke firmly. Fate, you can't beat it right now. Could you leave it to me? I see. Originally, such a powerful enemy would only appear after passing through the Devil's Night a few times. But we skipped a few steps by recklessly securing those dungeons. Rain must have been expecting this, which is why he prepared for battle. I calmly collected the corpses that hadn't been caught in the dragon's necromancy. Please, please leave it to me. Rain vanished, no doubt due to some ability similar to Ubiquitous. Looking at the dragon before me, however, I couldn't help but worry he wouldn't be enough. It's been a while. It was so annoying I thought I'd die. I've been shamelessly saving my energy for this. Thousands of chains sprung up around Rain to extend in all directions. They restrained, struck, and killed everything that it touched like a spider's web. As an ability that kept others from moving, I thought it suited Rain. I'm honestly scared of fighting the king. You are amassed with the fear of fate. Yet you still came back? You know why. This moon, this night, this world. The dragon let out a cry, his silver scales reflecting the black moonlight. Even if we lost our names, we are still demons. Well said, and confident too. The thousands of chains bound the dragon. Rain's mana was seemingly endless. It was like looking out at a boundless sea. Unfortunately for you, I have a fair bit of strength myself. Where is the king? The dragon's voice echoed across the battlefield. He couldn't move properly, but he still maintained his prudence. Only, I don't want to lose any more fights. I don't need to let you talk any further. Rain's attacks slammed down on the dragon. Countless chains tangled up and rattled, vibrating the space around them. I wondered if it was simply because he grew bored with the conversation, but I felt no irritation from him. Goo! The sky opened. It is the command of the devil. Along with the cheeky words of calling someone other than me the devil, a bullet pierced through both A's shield and my chest. I will clean up this wretched place and retrieve his wife. Chapter 136. The Birth of the Legion 4. The Birth of the Legion 4. The excruciating pain almost robbed me of my senses. I miraculously kept it from piercing my heart, thanks to the goddess touch that always wandered around me. But if it had been even just a little off, I would have lost my life. You can withstand a deadly blow, his words were right. Indeed, no one will overcome him. So, from the premise, it's unfortunate. Desperately absorbing the mana from the bullets caused a violent reaction inside of me. The shock of the bullet striking clean through me brought a name to mind. Barbados. I should have finished you off in one shot. Some of the bullet's power was lost, but the change was nowhere near as dramatic as Markosha's circumstance. I was expecting as much. He would have arrived so boldly if he had the same protections she did. King, as of right now, you can't do anything to me. Until the end, you played dirty. You're the one who fired those bullets and showed up. In other words, you were afraid of being called by name. As soon as he appeared, I made fun of the newcomer who was easily angered by my provocation. He fired off one more bullet, but I prevented it from breaking through this time. This dirty insect. A's expression was really rough. Undoubtedly, the experience of someone breaking through his shields was unpleasant for him. Barbados sneered at him. You are also very weak. The guard dog, yes. It was easy to see that A was bothered by his jab, but at that moment, the light pink energy radiating out from L wrapped around us. His expression eased for a moment as L stood behind us on the wall. Don't be provoked. You keep the castle safe. It's up to fate to kill him. Che! You're still trapped in this dark and narrow place. The target of his conversation had changed. He had come to recover the wife of the devil, and it was clear now he was referring to L. Unbridled rage began to fill me. The bullet in my chest, the hole in the sky he had punched through, looking down at us and treating L as someone else's wife. Now it is over. Please, accompany me. Fate. Ignoring Barbados's words, L turned to me. I hate hearing that voice. Please take care of it quickly. Got it. I think that was the first time she complained to me about anything. It was such a cute grievance, but laughing didn't suit the situation. I'll take care of it. It doesn't make sense. Dark clouds completely covered the underground sky. Barbados hovered below it. Unlike the other demons, he had a similar form to me. Fate. The next bullet will end you. A green jacket and hat with a shotgun in hand that exuded impossible energy. In the first shot, I could feel he was stronger than Rain or A, but now that I had spoken his name, it had become less than that. He was still stronger than me, however. Who? Looking at him, I had already recovered all the mana that I had been distributing throughout the battlefield, concentrating it into the annihilation I had in hand and the echo around my neck. It would be essential to deal with him. Ha! A third bullet shot out. I thought I had been able to avoid it, but the goddess touch deflected it away from me. It wouldn't be usable forever, so I had to quickly find a way to deal with it myself. My body kept moving as I took in my own faults, creating alter egos as I rushed at Barbados with ubiquitous. Ha ha ha! What are those toys? The alter egos exploded one after another. I already knew there was no way ubiquitous, which wasn't yet perfected, could work against him. None of my tricks would. However, the lost alter ego had its role. It slowly began to color the sky, bit by bit, with my own mana, creating an environment where I could easily move. Additionally, it would be an environment unfavorable for Barbados. Are you protected by him? Once the underground is destroyed and the battlefield attains completion, there will be no problem left. I couldn't avoid his fourth bullet. It flew in at such a high speed that even the goddess touch couldn't properly follow it. It exploded out of my shoulder, crushing through my muscle and bone. I didn't stop. My ability was insufficient, but the annihilation and echo of the soul, born amid countless miracles and despair, had the power necessary to defeat him. Ha! A groan escaped Barbados. The moment I desperately used Reaper to hide and rush him with the dagger, he tried to block my attack by lifting his shotgun up with both hands. I drew a silver line with the blank, drawing blood. Bang! An empty sound resonated in the air. The moment he was attacked, he moved around in space to aim at me anew and shot. His reaction speed was insane, but I was able to avoid it this time. Can you do anything but shoot a gun? You're holding a pretty dangerous toy that doesn't match you. I followed him in the air. The further I let him get away, the worse it would be for me. To hold on to even a bit of hope in this desperate fight, I'd have to cling to him desperately and swing my weapon. Another bullet, faster than before. A pair of distorted wings rose from his back. They were white-feathered with black stains, the wings of a fallen angel. Energy sprouted out from him, the energy of the elves. It filled him with pain, and at the same time it granted him strength. Who? His breathing grew harsh, and he stared at me. I will regain my position. Will you? I hit the air again and reached him, but my attack fell short. He was reading my movements. As I prepared for another bullet, his feet broke through the air like lightning and slammed into my abdomen. I was hit by the spirit of the elves who denied all of my existence, and pain radiated through my entire body. KH, this is his strength. It is only possible for one who controls the powers of both the elves and demons. It would be good to rethink the meaning of your words. There was something out of place when those who touted the power of the elves called their leader the devil. There is no need for the underground anymore, nor a need for the humans. There is no place for you. Disappear, you relic of the past. You're talking like you have a place yourself. Desperately using the regenerative powers I had, I used my rage to heal myself. The bullet that was flying at my head was blocked by the goddess touch, and the next one was shattered by the blade of my dagger. It happened somewhat unconsciously, but I was quickly becoming familiar with it. I rallied the mana inside me, absorbing all I could as I reached out towards the death surrounding me for strength. Persistent. What was there left to say when we both knew our words meant nothing to the other? Several bullets fired in succession from his shotgun, defying the laws of physics. My reaction was immediate. While moving through the air with Ubiquitous, I wielded Annihilation and activated the power of destruction to stop all of the bullets. Is that really all? The next moment, the muzzle of his shotgun was stuck in my mouth. I couldn't read his movements at all, but he could see mine. It was an unnatural movement, as we both appeared in the same space, and there was no in between his movement and his attack. Really, this is the end. And the bullet was fired, with enough power to blow my brains out and not enough time for me to think about it. At the moment, coincidentally, a death took place on the battlefield. Salas's sharp attacks tore the leopard's brain to shreds, swallowing it with the energy of predation. That energy flowed through to me, filling me for an instant. The fired bullet tore through my palate to strike at my brain as the energy was fully digested. You have acquired an extinction skill. Only, the destruction and annihilation skill have fused to make the skill flame of destruction. The flames poured from out of my mouth and burned the bullet. Ploros. Having kept safely away from it, I muttered the name of the high-ranking demon who had just died. A demon with the power to deal with flames, just like Andres. No wonder I had felt attracted to it from the start. Gaining the power of only one devil won't be enough. Only one. The flame didn't stop with burning the bullet and was now licking Barbados, who was trying to fire off more. I stepped through the air to approach him with a shine in my eyes. This is just the beginning. The flames enveloped his body, and a happy laugh escaped me as I watched him scream. The air opened up, and reinforcements that seemed to sense his crisis poured out. The battlefield was growing more and more chaotic as the demons let out a cheer. All the power will come to me. But now I was enjoying it. I thought perhaps it was I who was most affected by the devil's night as I slashed at the enemy before me. Chapter 137. The Birth of the Legion 5. The Birth of the Legion 5. As I overturned the battle by focusing my flames of destruction on Barbados, an attack blasted towards me. Perhaps due to my heightened reaction time, I could face it by turning my head away at the last moment. My body was moving by itself. It wasn't from Barbados, who was struggling with the flames, but rather it was an arrow. Mew! As soon as he completed his mission of killing Ploros, Salas had returned to my side and immediately recognized the situation through our shared senses. He jumped in without hesitation towards the deadly arrow aimed for my head, just as heavy as any of Barbados's strikes. Re-rage! I shouted the name that went to my mind urgently. Just before Salas, surrounded by the mana of Jinma, hit the arrow, its strength was noticeably reduced. Shit! A man appeared from the direction the arrow was shot from, wearing a green cloak and hat in imitation of Barbados. It was the demon sharpshooter Re-rage who was wielding a bow instead of a gun. He had apparently been waiting to snipe me while I fought Barbados, but when I put him on the defensive, Re-rage had become impatient. The power of a demon was warring with the elf inside him, weakening him now after I called his name. He had taken precautions so that it wouldn't kill him right away, though. Fuck! King! Why would you return when we don't want you? What a curious expression. I grabbed onto Salas, who blocked the arrow with his teeth. The arrow had apparently been poisoned, and now that was rotting through his body. I burned the poison away with the flame of destruction. Ah! Canis, go aid the others. Jow! Canis, who reached me a bit later than Salas, let out a brisk cry but ultimately obeyed my order. His fighting style wasn't suited for aerial combat, especially not against two ranged fighters, even if his strength was considerable. I needed him more on the ground, aiding the situation there. This place has already lost its former glory. I wonder who is behind that. Re-rage stepped up to provoke me, and I wondered if he was trying to buy Barbados time to recover. Of course, it gave me time to let Salas recover, so I didn't really mind. Ha! That flame is a dangerous combination. I know, Barbados. I'll be more vigilant than you. The abilities of these two matched up pretty well, just like Andres and Ploros. I wondered if that was why they dressed so similarly, too. Salas, are you okay now? Mew! A red thread spewed out of his mouth, emitting heat. I could see that he was also learning how to use the flames in his own way. Nothing will defile the devil's hand. You will die here today. Salas, I'm going. I used Ubiquitous to step through the air once more. Of course, arrows and bullets flew to the place I stepped in to face me, and the goddess's touch, combined with my predation, stopped them. At the same time, a flame of destruction bloomed in the air next to Re-rage to strike him in the head. You're wielding something that doesn't belong to you, he shouted angrily as he raised his bow to stop the flame. Barbados jumped through the air to help him but found himself in the spider web Salas had set for him. Ha! Mew! The webs aggravated his wounds as a strong flame enshrined inside the thin web began to burn him. Gaia! That spider! Arrows sailed through the air, hitting the defensive magic Salas had activated in preparation. That alone wasn't enough, however. Even though the arrows were weaker than the bullets, they contained a deadly toxin. I reached out, and the goddess touch reacted by bursting into pieces of crystal to create a shield in front of him. The arrows failed to pierce the shield created by my artifact, which repelled the energy back at Re-rage. I rushed straight at Barbados. He was exhausted from the continuous hits he had taken. No way! Now! Re-rage tried to shoot an arrow to stop me, but Salas was faster. His spider web filled the air, aimed right at him. Annoying! Mew! The arrow was caught in the web, deflected, and Re-rage suffered serious wounds as the spider web containing the flame of destruction surrounded him. By the time his movement was halted, I was already in front of Barbados. The annihilation in my left hand flashed out. That's it. Huh. Don't you dare laugh. One favored by the devil. Barbados's body, engulfed by the flames of destruction, shone white. Like when he had put the muzzle in my mouth, he moved beyond the range of my cognition. He was heading right toward Elle, who was silently watching us. If I can secure her. Don't be stupid. It's no use, he's already awakened. I couldn't clearly explain what happened. Despite being aware of the impending doom coming right for her, Elle didn't deviate. She was leading the flow that could be called the order in this battlefield and couldn't stop for a single second. She continued with the absolute belief that she would be all right. At some point, then, I noticed I was moving like Barbados. Ubiquitous became LV7. You will be harder to stop when moving. It was like I could see my own back moving faster before me, like I was projecting a future me into the present. I was running to get to my destination, but it was like I was already there as well. Barbados's entire body had turned into a strange arrow-like shape as the flames greedily licked at his body. However, before he could reach Elle, I had stood before her with hands spread wide to protect her. Before he could reach them, I was already swinging my dagger at where he would show up as if I had been there all along. Death. No one said it, but rather it was the will of the countless souls inside of Annihilation united as one. It pierced through Barbados's head, and a scream that did not come out as a voice filled the battlefield. All of the demons on the battlefield stopped moving, unable to figure out who was screaming. You gained 645,918 experience. You have received 439,271 gold. You obtained Death Whisper. Your level has risen multiple times. Evolution is now possible. Only, no! Rerage shouted out with his eyes wide open. The elves who had been climbing out of the hole the two created looked at me the same way. No way! Already? Somewhere on the battlefield, Rain muttered something like that. Evolution cannot be reversed. The closer you are to what you reached in the past, the more you will lose what you have instead of gaining more. Will you still move forward? I devoured Barbados's body whole. Of course. My next evolution began. Chapter 138. The Birth of the Legion 6. The Birth of the Legion 6. Started with my skin. My illusion burst away, as if it couldn't keep up with my strength, and revealed my dark skin for a moment as it began to split. It's dangerous. It thought it would be as simple as the evolution from Belkina to Belkina Predator, but that was a mistake. The changes that were taking place with me weren't about to end with just adding one more name to my race. If the evolution ended quickly, you would be able to use that against an enemy. But when it was happening slowly like now, it would just expose your weaknesses. The reaction of the elves and Rerage, who were floating in the air, was intense. I have to kill him now. The previous arrow fired off was blown away by the mana of Jinma that Salas and I were emanating during our evolution, but the second arrow was able to pierce through it to stick into my shoulder. The evolution continued without heeding it. We've arrived. We can't hold on. Don't let him break free of his bonds. 3 more angels appeared, pure white wings extending out from their backs. It appeared that they had decided to kill me today, appearing all at once on the battlefield. Instead of going after me, however, they went after Rain, who was still binding the dragon. That must be the demon who secured them passage to the underground. It wasn't the time to be considering that, however. I let the shield drop, jumping up into the air to intercept the demons. Their names: Rom, Balam, Porkas. I barely forced the names out while my skin, muscles, and bone were torn asunder. Just as with Barbados and Rerage, their white wings became tattered and dirty. Rain let out a laugh at the sight. Please, break your ugly wings. You! The devil won't forgive you. Don't put that name in your mouth. I collided with one of them, crushing their arm without a trace with the mana surrounding him. Ash! This damn power! They exchanged blows with A, but he wasn't fazed. His power and skill were enough to manage all 3 of them at once. If he had been going all out from the beginning, everything would have gone a lot better. However, the fort was no longer protected now that he was on the front lines. The fortress was like my true body on this night, so we would all be slaughtered if it collapsed. Quickly, I shouted in annoyance while holding back the angels. I tried to speed along the changes that were taking place inside of me, mana pulsing around my heart. Your life shall end here. An arrow hit me dead in the forehead. My head split in half, centered on the arrow. Have you done it? Having been frightened by Barbados's death, Rerage wouldn't approach me properly and stuck to firing arrows from a distance. I couldn't help but laugh at such a funny sight. As he tried to confirm if I was dead, the battlefield below me began to warp. A memory hidden inside me was imposing itself on my vision, revealing to me a castle much larger and more beautiful than the one I was currently guarding. It shone dimly under the black moonlight, and I was facing a handsome man on the balcony of the very top floor. Is today the last one we'll face each other? Stop talking like we were close. Ha ha ha, you're still cute. Disgusting. The man spoke to me with his hands wide open toward the moon. But we share purposes now. We are comrades. Comrades. I can hardly consider you a comrade. Don't worry. There is no man as trustworthy as me. Do I have to call your name and prove your lie? The man turned his head towards me. He was smiling brightly, but a fire burned in his eyes. This is an unfunny joke for you. You must have wanted to get me out. I don't want to be disturbed in my last night. Leave the moon and get out. Ha! 12 brilliant wings rose out from his back, so dazzling that didn't fit the underground. I always thought it funny how you always looked up, stuck at the edge of the underground, always desiring more. I'm different. There's nothing above me, so I'm forced to look down. Go away. It starts now. I look forward to seeing you again. For now, I'll take my bride. The man vanished from sight. I clicked my tongue and turned around. A vague shape stood before me. It was formless, but I knew that it was me. Couldn't be anyone other than me. Slowly, my lips twisted, and I began to laugh. Who? I unconsciously reached out my arms. My consciousness restored with a violent start. My body was torn apart as pain racked inside me. I let go of my destroyed parts, letting my mana reconstitute my body. Belkatina. The Belkatina is the race reached by an evolved Belkina. A Belkina's evolution is based on their individuality and potential, so no individual can be said to be the same. It's up to you whether you can relive your past glory. Fate. Belkatina LV60. A new magic, 596. Soul magic, 712. Luck. Skills. Predation LV5. Reaper LV5. Lunatic Trickster LV6. Ubiquitous LV7. Dominance LV5. Black Mine LV6. Magic LV1. Flame of Destruction LV4. The situation was urgent, so I had to quickly go through the status window to grasp what changed. Almost all of my skills had risen, but the most striking thing was magic. Belkina spell changed into just a skill called magic. It didn't feel like it had weakened, however. Instead, it felt like that simple word had countless possibilities for me to reach for. No. Damn. He's regained his ability. I stepped through the air as fragments of my body fell off. They were nothing more than trash now. My new body, which couldn't be recovered through predation, soon burned white and disappeared. Salas went through a similar metamorphosis as he remained in the air. How did you survive? I ate Barbados. I didn't get his power, but now I'm strong enough to withstand your attack. No doubt, if I ate Rerage, who had a corresponding power, I would acquire it. He could sense that, and he stepped back instinctively. But it was already too late. KHHHH. I rushed to him in an instant. Ubiquitous now felt as natural as breathing. Rerage tried to use a similar ability to flee, but he was being attacked by both Salas and me now. A spider web from behind him tied him up. No! The moment he was captured, he tried to exert a strange power. But I was already used to it. I used Predation to swallow up the strange mana blooming around him. The mana was alien to my own and tormented me from inside my body, but I was able to withstand it. This is no time to be held by a devil who lost his power. Help me. If you're going to say that, then deal with it and help me. Ah. Why doesn't he appear? The precious power of the devil. I told you not to speak that name. I raised up even more mana in anger. Have you been hiding your power? I didn't think it was possible for him to get any stronger. But there it was. The increase in power from my evolution hadn't affected only Salas and me. The fortress was also chained, and as a result, all entities connected to it and I were becoming stronger. Don't get excited and focus. The fort is under attack. Elle, who felt no sense of crisis even from the beginning, let out a sharp, clear voice. She spread out her magic to attack the demons and monsters charging the fortress, and the dwarves waiting inside prepared themselves. I won't die. I'll destroy you. Thank you for this meal. Salas imbued the spider web with the flames of destruction as I pressed annihilation up to his neck. I would devour him whole. You have gained 491,039 experience. You have received 310,283 gold. You received Courtship of Death. Level up. New magic increased by 17. Soul magic increased by 14. You have acquired the causal control skill. I acquired a skill with a grandiose name, but I didn't let it fool me. I didn't know how to handle it yet, but I knew that developing Ubiquitous allowed me to do similar things. From that, I had a rough grasp of what it could do, but I had to be careful with it. It could let me avoid attacks that couldn't be avoided or hit with attacks that couldn't hit. It was the ability to alter cause and effect. No doubt, it had also helped them in reaching the underground. I moved towards the angels' harrying rain, stabbing through one with my dagger. You have gained 281,283 experience. You have received 119,283 gold. Level up. The other two stopped, forgetting their offensive against A. I couldn't help but laugh. Before tonight had arrived, I could barely compete with them one-on-one. But now the idea of fighting two at once sounded easy. Stronger than Barbados. Only, he was right. Have you been restored a bit to your original form? I greeted me coldly and looked down, seeing how Elle was struggling against the demons alone. He clicked his tongue and flew straight down towards the wall. Damn, we still have the strength. No. I moved towards them. Devil's Night wouldn't last forever, so I couldn't be dragging my feet against these small fries. Now, I pointed my dagger at them. Thank you for this meal. Chapter 139. The Birth of the Legion 7. The Birth of the Legion 7. Don't get eaten. Oh no. He's starting to control this space. As I fought with the angels, my guild members and Rain were at the front lines stopping the demons. I don't know what sort of deal happened between the demons and the angels. Even the demons who weren't affected by the moonlight were fighting with a momentum that disregarded their own lives. Ash. Aw. The screams and shouts from the battlefield filled the underground. Those who had gathered under me, voluntarily or not, suffered and were losing their lives. It would be a lie if I said I didn't feel anything, which was why I had to focus on getting rid of these enemies now. Avoid him and attack the castle. He's protecting it. Shouldn't we secure his bride? Those with angel wings and the stained bodies of a traitor were flying around him. At this moment alone, more than 10 high-ranking angels were floating in the sky. They were afraid of me, but I couldn't ridicule their power, considering their numbers. Why won't he appear in person? No matter how strong you are, you're no match for him. An angel with impressive silver hair and amber eyes said so while swinging a sword made of ice. I called out his voice as I slashed with his ice sword. Thank you for letting me know, Crossel. Ha! The moment a demon's energy welled inside of her, it created the gap I needed. I struck through her with my dagger. Kahak! Intuitive and savage movements like a beast going for the throat. It couldn't be called swordsmanship. It was a simple killing technique that had no skill. Perhaps that was the realization of the Reaper ability. Damn! No more sacrifices. Crossel! Stop him! The other angels descended toward the fortress as if they were waiting for the moment where one of their allies took the fall. Some of them remained in the air to throw magic toward me, but even having just learned causal control, I was able to twist around and avoid them. KHHH! I lifted annihilation, and Crossel's body with it as I stretched out the energy of predation. It was incomparable to before now that I had evolved once more into a Belcatina. I didn't give Crossel a chance to resist as I ate his entire body. You gained 293,091 experience. You received 199,293 gold. You obtained Eternal Frost. Level up. That's how it is. I recovered the ice sword he left behind. It's arrogance. That irrational behavior that came from absolute confidence no one could stand above him. So, unless all of his subordinates were killed and he had no more pawns to move, he would never mobilize himself. Or maybe I could go to him. I left my thoughts be and turned to the air. The hole the angels had punched through was gradually closing, the traces of Barbados and Re-Rage's power dying away. Do they know? As long as they maintained their pure state, they would have been able to return to the rookie's battlefield in a few days, even if their exit was closed. But now that the power of a demon was mixed into them, it was impossible. No doubt, their leader had accepted that this might be a possibility. As far as I knew, the only person who could enter the battlefield despite having mixed blood was Morena. Unbelievable. It's irreversible. The mission comes first. Damn it. The angels noticed it but tried to push on. I twisted causal control and let black lightning pour out from me. I poured out all of the mana I had, all of the mana I had acquired, and all of the mana I could take from the space around me to activate my magic. Ah! Where'd this lightning come from? You can't run away. Chains of black lightning split through the air with eerie sparks. The energy of predation and the flame of destruction were contained in the chain, absorbing the angels' energies and weakening them. Cool. It's all over. Thank you for this meal. Level up. Magic became LV3. I looked over the notice and towards the remaining angels with a smile. It meant nothing if they completed their mission now that their way of escape was lost. They should have fled the moment Barbados and Re-Rage died. Kuga! Another shout echoed on the battlefield. The demons were dying, burnt up in sacrifice for the devil's night. It was like watching a festival, a sight much more beautiful than the dirty angels. Shit! I can't die underground. If we get rid of the castle, no one can stop us. Let's kill them all. If we do that, then someday he will save us. They naturally came to that conclusion, the one I was expecting. The angels didn't know what to do after losing their way out, but now they were rallying. Get the bride first. Their target was L now, which was the worst option they could have picked. It was like they were testing how far they could push me. I imbued the ice sword I was still holding in one hand with my magic, confident in my ability to take care of the remaining enemies. Gaiak! Before I could even think about throwing the sword, one of the angels who had been chasing after L fell as blood spewed out of his mouth. A bullet of enormous magical power had struck him. It wasn't caused by L or A, who were focused on the fortress, nor by Rain, who was out fighting the demons. I looked around for the answer. Why are you trying to reach out to the lady? A huge gate had opened in the air above us, a voice flowing from within it. It belonged to a beautiful but sharply featured woman. This new entity was not one of the underground traders, so I couldn't call out her name, though her existence certainly remained in my memory. Are you okay, sister? And it's been a while, Fate. Did you grow up a bit? A huge camel stepped through the air, a beautiful woman with flowing red hair riding upon it. Great mana rained down from her, conflicting a bit with the awkward image. To brazenly pretend to be an ally. L responded coldly, but the red-haired woman only laughed. Sorry about that. I can't betray you too. As long as you have that power and charm that is worthy of the one above. I decided to figure out what happened later and landed on the fort. I cut through the angels with my ice sword as I yelled up at the woman. I'll decide whether to kill you or not after the battle. Move. Who? So that's Fate. The woman started to move in earnest. It wasn't just her who arrived from inside the gate. A legion followed her. Even if she had lost her power, she was still a high-ranking Jinma. Leaving her legion to take care of the demons and monsters attacking my fortress, she flew into the fort atop the camel, firing magic at the angels. What? Why is she on his side again? Again? Wasn't I on his side from the beginning? Several more gates opened under the gloomy dark moonlight. Demons that had been liberated from various places in the underground were raging. A man on the back of a leopard, one with the head of a horse, a silver dragon like the one Rain killed. Demons with extraordinary energy appeared one after another. Ha 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 ha. No way will this happen again. Devil's King, you want to sit back on that vacant seat for a bit? It's an honor to see fate again. Incredibly, the demons showing up wanted to join us. It was an unexpected event for me, who thought that both the demons and angels were enemies. I was almost embarrassed. What are you doing? Kill all enemies in front of you. Someone let out a shot, and as if in response, the voice that always arrived with the devil's night echoed out. Fight! Devour all and grow. There seemed to be little left to do tonight. I made full use of Ubiquitous to reach the remaining angels with a laugh. Chapter 140. The Birth of the Legion 8. The Birth of the Legion 8. The battle couldn't last forever. The power balance had been completely upset with the incorporation of some demons on our side, backing up my allies that had been increasing in power due to my evolution. Ha! Ha 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 ha! This is how it ends. It won't open. The arrogant traitor took no action to save the angels dying by our hands. I wondered if his ability didn't reach the underground. I wanted to wait for him, but in the end, nothing happened. I felt a bit relieved but also unsure. Was it just because of his arrogance that he hadn't shown up? That question remained. Of course, the only way I could get the answer would be by confronting him. With the angels finished off, the demons and monsters were easier to deal with. While I had been fighting my own battle, the rebellion members had safely finished off the snake, and Rain was on to fighting others after killing the dragon, Boone. With the aid of the demons such as the red-haired beauty, the hostile ones lost it. Returning King. Were we playing in your hand the entire time? Bullshit. The demon left until the end was a man with a hound's teeth. He ran wild on the battlefield, but I took care of him with the flame of destruction. I wanted to run around a bit more, but it's a shame. I'm sorry, but there will be no next time. After extinguishing the last of them, I remembered he had a rather long name like Glacialabalas or something like that. Not that it mattered now. I can't do it yet. What are you talking about? Rain, who was recovering his chains, tilted his head and asked me what I meant. I smiled bitterly and pointed toward the demons surrounding me. Their names. They seemed to just come to my mind, but... Really? Will you be able to return my name? The red-haired beauty, who was relaxing on the camel, jumped off and grabbed my hand. Elle was looking on at the scene with a terrifying expression. It's possible if I'm forced to think of it. However, I'm not sure if it would be acceptable right now. I pulled her hand away. But you returned the names of the traitors Barbados and Re-Rage? I can weaken them by letting the mana of a demon and angel collide within them by returning it. Aha! Don't talk like you were here on our side from the side. Elle appeared all of a sudden. Sister, I was on your side from the beginning. I couldn't handle it with the power fate left me, so I hid. When the gate opened and you met fate again, what would you have done if you thought you were stronger than him? Ah, you know? Elle quietly raised her hand toward the smiling beauty. I thought she would slap her, but instead, I saw a terrible level of mana gathering in the palm of her hand. I hurriedly went to stop here. Let it go. So, are you guys of the same mind? The recent decades have been boring, but now you've regained your strength and opened the underground. I'm willing to run wild if you're with us. I'm glad to have fate back. Whatever they were thinking, their reasons were plausible. I stared at the three demons before me, including the red-haired beauty, who expressed their willingness to become my subordinates. All right, probably the entire world will change a lot in a short amount of time. As you can see, several high-ranking demons have died today alone. They are those who have endured many years. Those years are nothing in front of this fight against the traitors who abandoned the underground. The sight of the black moon above us was gradually disappearing. What happened today could be called a cataclysm. But the problem was that it wasn't over yet. Many of you will die and disappear. Those who survive will be stronger. Maybe we can get our names back. Name. Name. It must be. After all, is that what you want? I smiled at the demons who showed off their innocent longing before turning to announce the end of the battle. He has proved his authority as king by conquering the Devil's Knight and invaders from the Holy Land. The area has expanded. Once more, the fog covering the land cleared away. A huge change, incomparable to the previous one, was occurring. Mana filled an area that could never be seen with the naked eye. Wow! Securing such an unprecedented area without a name. Don't be ridiculous. It's stupid to judge his ability by that. Elle growled at the red-haired beauty as she clapped with pure admiration. In my memory, the two were sisters, but Elle seemed to view her as just an enemy. The former area was, at best, the size of a city, but this territory is so vast that maybe as much as a fifth of the underground has been secured. Maybe next time, every single demon who has engraved their name in the underground's history will gather. It will take quite a while for the next night to arrive, but it will. The man atop the laughter laughed as if he was really happy to hear Rain and A's conversation. Following the expansion of my territory, a change would now occur with me. It was time to accept the mana following in from the expanded territory. Wow! I haven't seen mana that pure in a long time. Don't get close. It will reject everyone except its owner. Thanks for the warning, sister. Not only my body but my mind was filled with blackened mana. Throughout the battle, I felt the power of demons and angels jumbling together in a mess, which was now flowing into me. If I hadn't evolved into a Belkatina, accepting this amount of mana would have been difficult, if not downright impossible. All of the mana was now mine, and I had no intention of wasting a drop. I called out to my power of predation, completely absorbing the mana that was raging inside of me. The only thing that mattered was how it would make me stronger. New magic increased by 193. Soul magic increased by 228. Magic became LV5. The notification naturally appeared before my eyes as I was forced down so much mana, it could cause my body to explode. I was elated at its sight, however, as I could feel my power increasing. From now, it would be time for the most important part of my plan for the Devil's Night. Fate. I know. I looked around at the monsters that had survived so far. About 1/5 of them survived, so my forces were looking rather shabby. Mountains of corpses were scattered throughout the battlefield. We will be reinforcing you from now on. My voice spread out to the survivors. I would focus on reinforcing all of those who hadn't entered the higher system. Dwarves, who were only allied with us, were excluded. But now, if they survived, all of them would grow stronger. Grua! It was already happening, following the sudden changes I had encountered. It was the perfect time to reinforce them as they were evolving. Without waiting for an answer, I exercised my rights as the lord of this realm, converting the corpses scattered throughout the land into mana through using predation. Wow! The mana of countless different beings, each with their own personality and light to them, began to intermingle into a brilliant display of colors. It's pretty, but somehow it's sad too. I'm scared. That amount of mana is no joke. Ha! A lot have died today. A wave of dark light flowed over the ground where a drop of water would not appear. Looking up at it, each member of Rebellion felt something indescribable watching it. We had just been in a battle where we could have easily been the ones who turned to little more than mana, and I could feel it myself. It begins. Someone whispered as waves of black light filled the world, advancing without hesitation toward the survivors. It struck them as they were changing already, unable to avoid it. Kawu! Kaya! Only, the waves were absorbed into the monsters, not a single drop wasted. All of them evolved at least once into a higher-level species. Even with the results being much as I predicted, the sight was still overwhelming to see. If you don't want them to catch up, you'll have to become stronger. Damn. All of my subordinates are evolving to a higher level. Li Chanyu screamed in joy as his subordinates entered the higher system. I laughed as I heard his voice below me. This is the power of predation. Even if he's stuck in a weak body, that strength remains the same. This is fate's ability. Why are you puffing your cheeks, sister? It wasn't long before an army of tens of thousands of top-notch monsters had been born. It far exceeded the results I was planning for. No doubt, there would be issues above ground again, especially with many of the dungeons I hadn't been able to absorb yet. The scale would be unlike it had been previously. But, as a result, the number of monsters I would get would be huge. No doubt, the traitor had his plans, but it was time for us to go all out. Started now. The Great Legion had just been formed. We've reached the end of today's episode. Thank you for traversing the boundless landscapes of fantasy with us. If today's story has sparked joy within you, please remember to hit the like button, share our journey with others, and subscribe to Lord of the Stories for an ever-expanding collection of mystical escapades. Until we meet again to turn the page to a new adventure, hold the tales dear in your heart, and let the embers of magic warmly glow in your spirit. Farewell, intrepid explorers of the narrative unknown.